Canada's north is a place of extreme conditions, and Mary Simon remembers a time when her people lived off the land and traveled with the seasons. But by the 1950s, the government of Canada began to see the Inuit as strategic assets. The existence of people on the land meant that Canada could stake a claim to the vast Arctic region, so the government began moving nomadic people into communities. And that's when the Inuit began to face new problems that plague the communities to this day. Poor housing, poor education, loss of language, loss of identity, all challenges that Mary Simon has fought against most of her adult life. She was born in Nunavik, a former producer and announcer with CBC North and also former Canadian diplomat. Mary is the president of the Inuit Tapahrit Kanatami. That's the national organization that represents the Inuit. And Mary believes change is coming for her people because the Arctic is not just a key border area, but it's also rich in resources. And if the region is going to be developed, then she is adamant that the Inuit people be full partners. The solution to her? Education, investment in a school system that incorporates Inuit ideas and language.
I stand here today ready to work with you, as Inuit have always done.
Please welcome to the show, Mary Simon. Great to meet you. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very well. Come on in.
I'm breaking a myth here.
You're breaking a myth. What's that myth?
We used to be called savages.
Right.
In the Royal Proclamation, and then we were called Eskimos.
Right.
And then we started using our own name for ourselves, which is Inuit.
Inuit. And Inuk is the singular, right?
It's singular. And everybody thinks that we kiss with our noses, but we don't.
So the cheek to cheek. I like it.
No, you sniff like that.
That's it?
That's it.
What are you sniffing for?
Your loved one.
Okay. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't recognize them? Is that the deal?
No.
Have a seat.
It's just our way, our culture.
I'm just kidding. Thanks for coming.
I always watch you sitting like this.
That's right.
I love your show.
Thank you so much.
But you know what? We sit like this.
On the floor?
Yes.
Yeah, but the problem is we're not lit for the floor. That's the problem. Maybe next time we'll do that. We'll sit on the floor.
All right.
Thank you for coming to the show. I really appreciate this.
Oh, I love to be here.
You've done a great job of expressing to Canadians some key differences that are important. When people talk about First Nations, everybody thinks that includes all Aboriginal peoples.
Yes.
But with Inuit, it's different. I mean, there are key differences, aren't there?
Yes, very much so. We fully respect the other Aboriginal peoples in Canada, but we are a distinct people with our own culture and our own language. And we are a coastal people. We live along the Arctic coast. And we very much depend on the marine life for our food and livelihood. And that's why I'm wearing my sealskin. And
very controversial vest, but well done. You know?
well, not controversial for us, though.
No, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. But it is certainly part of the conversation. What's interesting about also there are some significant challenges in as far as Inuit people currently. I mean, if you take a look at something that you've talked about, the food insecurity rates are incredibly high. The graduation rate is incredibly low.
Yes.
This is something that's really important for you to get out, isn't it?
Oh, extremely important. Our living standards are much lower than the rest of Canada. So when you live in a developed country and you're in a region that's pretty undeveloped when you consider the services that are provided to us.
Well, 70% food insecurity is very high.
Well, that is sometimes caused by the cost of living. The cost of living is like 3 or 4 times higher than the rest of Canada. And you don't take into consideration that the fact that our culture is a hunting society. And when people can't go out hunting, they usually have to buy the cheapest food they can buy in the store, which is sometimes junk food.
Right.
So that's where some of the insecurity comes in, the food insecurity in our north. And we're working very hard to try and lower the cost of living up north, but it's very difficult.
Well, one of the interesting things about the situation for the Inuit is that you are on strategically important land, and that a lot of people talk about Arctic sovereignty, and a lot of people talk about possible drilling, and a lot of people talk about what's happening up there. And there's a lot of space, and that's where you live.
That's right.
And so it puts you in a very different situation than maybe other people in First Nations communities across the country, because there is going to have to be some relationship between you and the government and, I suppose, the military and the rest of the Arctic communities, aren't there?
That's right. And, you know, we're confronted with issues like sovereignty, because the Arctic is now being discussed in many ways. One is resource-rich development that is going to be coming in the future, once the ice melts, countries are talking about how they're going to develop all the resources, and we want to be partners in that, but not just in terms of the resource and the money, but also we want to make sure that we're safeguarding our life and the communities and the environment, and that the developers are using the highest standards and high quality equipment that people use around the world. You know, we want the best of the best if there's going to be any development in the north, and part of that is to work along with the developers so that we can provide jobs for our people. 70% jobless rate is not an uncommon thing in the north, and some of it is related to the fact that we're not educating. Our kids aren't getting through school. Like, they often drop out in grade 9 or 8, 9 or 10 or even younger.
A lot of people like to, in positions of spokespersons roles or politicians, love to campaign on platitudes and love to talk about, and the word you hear all the time is hope, hope, hope. And I heard you say hope is not a plan, which I thought is fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there any role for hope in this? Like, does it play an important role on any level?
We have hope in our lives. I mean, we're not in a hopeless situation. We have a lot of challenges that we face, and people are working very hard every day to make a livelihood that will allow them to live comfortably in their communities. We were nomadic people, but we now live in communities, and we depend on material goods just like you do.
Is that challenge an easy one to get past, community-based living?
Well, that created part of the challenge, because we were nomadic people and we were very self-sufficient. We had our own spirituality. But when the government decided to put us into communities, people weren't used to living in communities. So the colonization process and the residential schools era really destroyed some of the identity. So those types of issues have had a severe impact on our people, and we are just coming back.
Yeah,
you know, we are just coming back, and now, you know, we're poised, really, to take on all these responsibilities.
That's so great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Really
it was lovely to be
that.
here.
Thank you. The National Inuit leader, Mary Simon, everybody. We'll be right back.